I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is
Morning somewhere!
for November 29th, 2024. Super late on that one. My name is Burnie Burns. That's okay. We've got tryptophan in our system. Sitting right over there, it's Ashley Burns. Say hi to Ashley, everybody.
Good morning and happy Friday.
I didn't even give you a little pithy intro today because you were in a grumpitude mood for some reason.
I'm just not up for it. I'm so grumpy right now.
You argued with me about the dumbest thing today. We were talking about...
I argued with you about multiple dumb things, and it's the beginning of the morning.
I don't know what happened. I was just like, I got up early. I got the kids ready for school and everything like that. And you showed up and you were like, grumpy from.
Yeah, Bernie's catching strays. He's just
really
like,
was.
he's
Glad
just,
you acknowledge that.
He's just living here, and I'm like, what's wrong with you?
That's okay. We all have mornings like that. That happens. That happens.
Well, look, I'm coming down from a lot of emotional highs. I finally caught up on Stormlight Archive, so I'm ready to go for the new book, Bernie. It's been a real journey. Okay.
Have we ever identified that feeling of when you finish a book, that weird melancholy feeling? Didn't we determine that there was
like a book hangover?
There's like a word for that. Like there should be a word in German, right? Like
I'm sure there is. So
you finish a book and you feel happy and accomplished, but also really kind of empty and sad inside.
Well, there's something a little bit different too, though. When I feel like when I read the last book in a series, and it's like over. That is a different feeling than when I am all caught up and now I'm waiting for the next thing. Like there's an element of anticipation when the series isn't finished. When you turn the last page on a series that is finished and you know that like that world is complete for you, that's a different feeling.
Until they make a new one.
So Germans weigh in. I feel right.
Germans weigh in. Hey, that's the phrase for 2024. Hey, Germans weigh in on this.
Well, look, there's a word in German for everything. You compound enough of words and you get something in German that is like very specific, right? They have that for just about everything. And so Germans weigh in if there's a word for that in books.
If there's a word for that in books.
Yeah, like what is that book hangover that you get? But I do have that right now. So I'm doing
like
great
they're
though.
sad and reading.
I'm well finished in advance though, so I can go and like now round out the universe with the novellas and all that stuff that I didn't have time for, or I thought I wasn't going to have time for. But really, I exceeded my own expectations here. However, it's left me a little bit emotionally delicate. So
yeah.
Go easy on me.
Yeah. It's always nice, too. That's like George R.R. Martin is being very nice to us because his final book was numbered number 5 out of 7. So we didn't know. You didn't have to have that bad feeling at the end of it.
He's just leaving us with permanent anticipation.
Right. It's better in your head at this point. Do you think, as a fan of the written page, do you think he will ever finish those books?
No, I don't.
You don't?
I absolutely do not. I think
Can I say one thing before we talk about this?
You may. Go ahead.
There seems to be a thing whenever you talk about George R.R. Martin, not you, but the royal you. When we talk about George R.R. Martin as a people often then talk about him dying, and I'm not comfortable with that for some reason. I find that discussion weird. Like,
yeah, it comes up a lot.
It
right?
does,
like,
right?
There's no way he's going to finish this before he dies, and that's a very weird and
human
dark
being.
way to put the thing. Like, I can't believe this person's going to die before I get the thing that I want out of them.
Right.
That said, I also there's a lot of people who are like, authors who don't finish the series, they don't owe you anything, etc. They're right. It's true that they don't technically owe you anything, but I also maybe have a slight hot take in that I feel like if you start a series, you're sort of selling people on the promise of the rest.
Well, you have a specific history with this too, because you read the books not knowing that they were a series or the first book, right?
I started reading them thinking they were a trilogy, and I bought them when I was on my first visit to London. And so,
what year was this?
Oh God, 2003 maybe.
Like, what's the longest you've waited between books, excluding this last one, essentially? While you were reading the Game of Thrones series.
Well, now that's it. Before, I actually had a rule this was a personal rule at the time that I got this, which was that I didn't start unfinished series.
Yeah.
That was my
good
thing.
call.
I only wanted a series that were already finished, and I also had a rule against anything longer than a trilogy because that just seemed like a whole lot of commitment. And somehow I managed to get both a not trilogy and an unfinished series in one go. And I gave it a pass because in the UK they split the third book into 2 volumes, and so it was 4. And I was like, it's 4, but it's 3, right? It's part 1 and part 2. I'm gonna give this the pass. This is before they got into the the Hunger Games, Mockingjay part 1, part 2, whatever it was, and started doing that with movies. But I'm like, I'm gonna give this a pass, and I got to the end of it and went, oh no, this is nowhere near finished. You start looking at the pages and going, how are they going to wrap this up in the pages that are left?
Right, these
And
characters
then you
aren't
get
even
to
together.
the end and you realize, oh, they're not.
Yeah.
But now that's the whole series. So
So what was the longest gap between books for you for Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire?
I mean, the thing is, the first ones came out really close together. It was like 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, and then it was like 4 years. And then I think the longest gap that I've ever gone between volumes of a book is between 4 and 5 of Game of Thrones.
And what's
of one that's actually come out. There's other unfinished series that people get really bitter about, like Name of the Wind. There's a Patrick Rothfuss series where 2 of the books are out. It's theoretically a trilogy. And the third one is just nowhere to be seen.
What is the last Game of Thrones book that came out? Was it Feast of Crows or the Sword one?
Winds of Winter? No.
I think Winds of Winter is the one he's
the one that
working
we're
on.
waiting on. And then there's like a promise of spring or a hint
Storm of
spring.
Swords?
Oh, God. Now I'm going to...
No, Feast of Crows takes place concurrently after the end of A Storm of Swords. So Feast for Crows, that was released in 2005. I'm just trying to figure out what's the last book that was published in the series.
A Dance with Dragons is the most recent one that's out.
And that was published, let me look this up. Dance with Dragons was published in 2011. So we are now 13 years past when that book was published.
Yeah, so
That's a dead series.
Yeah, it's a dead series. And then you know what? I've made peace with that. I'm fine. But I have every faith in Brandon Sanderson. He's going to get through this. So this next book that's coming out is sort of like the halfway point in his epic saga, but it's also you know how you are a big fan of like jump on, jump off points? Mm-hmm. It's like the end of like
I think
this
that's an honest way to make long
5-book
form
arc.
stories. Yeah.
Right. So the idea being that then he'll have this other, I think 5-book arc is the intention, but that will be like a huge time jump. And theoretically, you can probably read it a little bit separately, right?
Okay.
And so if there's a bit of a wait for that one, I'm fine with it. But he's been fairly consistent with it. He writes like an absolute machine.
To put it in perspective, Two Towers, second book in the Lord of the Rings series, was published in November of 1954, and less than a year later, Return of the King came out.
I think they were initially kind of written as one single volume as well, and then got split up after the fact.
And published that way?
That's how they get published.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic. I'm very excited. It's a great series. And I'm also feeling emotionally delicate, Bernie, because I've been trying really hard to watch all these Christmas movies.
Oh, I thought you were upset about the Russian ruble, but go ahead.
Look, it's slipping. But I have a real bone to pick, Bernie.
You're having a tough day. That's what the media
I'm
tough.
having such a tough day.
Why do you have a bone to pick with your dumb Christmas movies?
It's specifically with the Hallmark Channel, Bernie. So 2 of the movies that I
don't
put
get
in
me
my
started
bracket are
with the fucking Hallmark Channel. Hallmark.
I know the guys that make the Christmas cards so got me mad.
Did the network come from the Christmas card company, or did it go the other way?
No, I'm pretty sure they started as the Christmas card company, and then they made this
branched
channel.
out into major media.
Well, look, they saw how much money they make off Christmas cards and thought, let's make Christmas movies too.
Right.
That's like the extent of what they do. They make Christmas movies. The Hallmark Channel only ever rears its head. It's like Mariah Carey or Michael Bublé. They rear their head once a year, right, during the holidays. That's when the big money maker is. So 2 of the movies in my bracket, Christmas Charade, and there's another one, and then also the Taylor Swift, one of the Taylor Swift knockoff Christmas movies. Those are all Hallmark Channel movies. And here's the thing. I signed up for something called Hallmark Plus, because apparently we're making all of our streaming services.
Hallmark Plus.
We're making them all plus. So there's Disney Plus, and there's, I don't know, Peacock Plus or whatever, and Paramount Plus. Now it's Hallmark Plus. Anyway, so I signed up for it, and it turns out these movies aren't on their Plus. They're only on their linear TV, which is still streaming digitally.
You can't do that.
I know. So now I'm supposed to tune in at
wait.
9 p.m. on Friday to watch one of these movies, but that's 3 a.m. for me, Bernie. So I'm going to be up in the attic at 3 o'clock in the morning watching a movie about a lady who got roped into some sort of like spy shenanigans at Christmas.
I'm going to reap the whirlwind for this. You're going to be so mad the next day after that. So I don't get it. I don't get how Hallmark goes from making Christmas cards to making major motion picture. I guess they just thought like we're writing essentially one line of dialogue a time on a Christmas card. Let's just stack like 300 of these together and suddenly we've got a story.
Look, but I feel like calling them major motion pictures is perhaps giving them slightly too much credit.
They got like the guy who played Cyclops in some of these, don't they? James Marsden.
They can afford. They can afford like one actress. And by the way, I fell down a total rabbit hole. So the lady who's in Hot Frosty, she's the one who is in
Anne Hathaway.
No, Mean Girls. With the
Charlize
brown
Theron.
hair. No. Stop.
Ariana Grande.
No, she was in Lost in Space.
Dua Lipa.
Stop. Lacey
Sharon Tate.
Okay, it's Lacey Chabert. I didn't know.
Name a woman!
Is that one of the best internet videos of all time?
That is that is definitely
That
one of
is
the best.
Billy on the street, name a woman. He's doing a lightning round. He runs up to this poor woman on the street in New York and just puts a microphone in front of her face and says, name a woman. Dude, I have never seen a better example of stage fright in my life.
Okay.
She cannot she is a woman and she can't name a woman.
Being honest though, if someone ran up to you on the street with like a broadcast camera and a microphone and started shrieking in your face to start naming people or things, do you think you could do it?
Absolutely. I don't know. I could come up with something. I named like 50 women right there. I mean, yeah. You just never know when that's going to hit. Her brain just locks up. If I remember the video right, too, he calls her yoga bag because she has a yoga bag on. And then she starts trying to hand him her yoga
She's
bag.
like, am I being mugged right now? What's happening?
So confused. It's one of my favorite internet videos of all time because she just like, what a dumb bit. And who knew it was going to land that hard?
It's
anyway,
fantastic.
go ahead.
You just never know, right? It's either going to be that or you're going to become a famous talk to a podcaster.
Right.
Like, it's going to go one of two ways.
That's the other end of that spectrum. Like, there's a person who had the moment and capitalized on it. That could have been the most famous person. She could have been in this Hallmark movie that you're talking about instead of Zooey Deschanel.
No, this girl, Lacey Chabert, apparently she's like a Christmas movie queen now.
Oh, for real?
She's like the Mariah Carey of Christmas movies. She stars in like every single one.
She was on Party of Five. Am I thinking about the right person?
I don't know. I never saw that show, but I know her she was in the Lost in Space movie.
Okay.
And then she was in Mean Girls. And
Which
now
one? Aren't there like 50 of those now? Like, is she one the one with Matt LeBlanc and Gary Oldman?
Are we talking about Lost in Space movies or are we talking about Mean Girls? Because they made a lot of both.
Matt LeBlanc. Yo, what's with all these mean girls? I like Matt LeBlanc. That sometime in the 90s, somebody just goes, hey, we need another Tony Danza. Can we just go out and find him?
Name a Tony Danza.
Matt LeBlanc's right there going, yo. I like also that my Tony Danza and Matt LeBlanc is a Sylvester Stallone impression. It's all the same dude. So anyway, was her name Lathy? What's her name?
Lacey Chabert.
Lacey Chabert?
Yeah.
All right, I'll look up
So
Lacey
she was in
Chabert.
was in like the 90s Lost in Space movie.
Oh, she was on Party of Five from
All right.
1994 to 2000. Look at me with
Look
the
at
memory.
you.
Yeah.
Steal trap on Bernie.
Yeah, I'll look up whichever Lost in Space
he
movie
can
she
name
was
a
in.
woman.
I bet I could. Why is this so hard? So, where were you on this? Do you like this movie? Is this a good movie, bad movie? This Lacey Chabert rabbit hole you've fallen down?
I enjoyed Hot Frosty. I feel like I should do a deep dive on these movies at some point because to give each of them the review they deserve. It was fun. There's some weird things about it. Obviously, I think the premise of sexy snowman is hilarious for a Christmas movie, and I'm all about it. But there's a lot of the Christmas movies that I've watched so far where I love the premise. They're hilarious, they're awesome, they're ridiculous. But then I feel like the people making them didn't love them.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So that's, and then that applies to actually quite a few of the movies that I've watched so far. But we'll see. Maybe when I can finally watch these Hallmark movies, everything will change and I'll see the love.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's weird you signed up for the premium service, but then they have a non-premium service and they don't have the movie on their own premium service. They have it on their own other channel.
Correcto.
That's bizarre.
I know.
Is that's not like a rights thing because we live in the UK?
I put on VPN. So I've been trying to figure out the Hallmark viewing strategy. If anyone has Hallmark viewing advice, I would appreciate it because otherwise I'm going to be up at 3:00 in the morning.
I feel like the quality or the the use of VPNs is dropping off quickly. Like services, all services, not just like I've even run into when I have a VPN on and I'm on my social media network of choice, Reddit. When I'm on there and I click on a YouTube video, there's now this new error when I have the VPN on that says you need to sign in to ensure you're not a bot. But it gives me no options. It's like I have to go and turn off the VPN. There's no link to click to go through to YouTube or anything like that. It's just like dead end.
I find that occasionally if I'm using a VPN, things will, they'll throw up captchas or something like that. Like they're worried they're getting DDoSed or something via VPNs, maybe because it's using some sort of shared localized IP or something like that. So I do find that they're not seamless. They're not seamless, but I'm trying to just get myself into the US to view these things. And it's, so far, it hasn't been working out great for me, but I'm doing my best.
You probably haven't run into this either, but if I ever click on like a not safe for work link, I have to make sure I'm not VPN'd into Texas, which was my default, because when I would get something shipped, I would want to get like shipping rates estimates to Texas. Now it's like I was looking for something to buy for Christmas and it said, this is how much it's going to cost to ship to New York. And I'm like, why is it trying to ship something to New York? Like, oh, right. Because of not safe for work links now being illegal in a lot of cases in Texas, I switched my VPN to a different state. Just a weird world we live in. That's weird, man.
Things have gotten a little bit strange, both online and offline.
Yes.
I mean, in kind of like ridiculous, weird real life news, Bernie, did you see that there was a pilot airdropping turkeys in Alaska?
I think that's awesome.
It's amazing. So
Yeah.
I guess it was for these rural communities were having trouble getting turkeys for Thanksgiving. So this helicopter pilot
It's Alaska.
was
Can't you go hunt
dropping
your own
them in.
turkey in Alaska? Are there no turkeys in Alaska? It seems like
I think it's mostly bear country.
bear country.
Yeah.
So that means one of two things.
I assume
Do turkeys live in bear country, or is Alaska is where bears live?
the bears got them first.
Right. Not BARE country. Like it's not like open plains. That's where turkeys live. That's not what you're saying? Yeah. Can be interpreted many different ways.
I know 3 things about Alaska. Cruises. No, 4 things. Sled dogs, oil, bears.
And Lathy Chathbert. I'm saying your name wrong every time. After naming all those people, I can't even pronounce
Just
your name
wait,
after
Bernie.
reading
There
it.
is
Chabbert? Is that how you say it?
That's how I pronounce it. There is, you're going to love this. There's a Hallmark Christmas movie starring her called A Merry Scottish Christmas.
Lost in Space, by
And
the way.
you're going to have to watch this with me. It's going to be awful.
No, I'm not. I'll be watching the 1998 American sci-fi adventure film Lost in Space, starring Gary Oldman, William Hurt, Matt LeBlanc, Mimi Rogers. That's interesting. Heather Graham, I know she was in that, and Lacey Chabert.
Perfect.
Available not on Hallmark Plus, but on Hallmark Regular at 4 in the morning.
They're linear version only. What are you smoking, Hallmark?
So that's the other thing too. So we got a lot of great discussion about, there's 2 great discussions this week. One was about food. I do want to give a shout out to our subreddit for having a very measured discussion about the social media ban for under 16s, which is now passed in Australia. Won't go too deep into it because we've, given our opinions on this. One of the big questions about it is how enforceable is this? And I would put a nuance in this discussion. What if instead of banning social media, we just ban smartphones? Like ban the devices for people under 16. Like if you see a 14-year-old walking around with a porno mag, that's like, you shouldn't have that. Like, you can see that, right? I get how they can circumvent.
Right, kid, you got to go find one of those in the woods like the rest of us used to.
Right. I mean, we can all, acknowledge that kids will find a way to look at photos of naked ladies. That's probably just going to happen. But, if we ban the devices, that's a little bit different than banning a service. And we can all recognize how banning a service is like basically saying, hey, don't download that. That never works.
You wouldn't download a car.
You wouldn't download a car.
I would download a car if I could.
Would you?
Wouldn't you? If you could just download a car and like 3D print the car and just have the car, would you do that?
Well, this is going to lead down another rabbit hole, something that I kind of is interesting to me, but I don't know if I want to talk about, which is I saw this headline and it was this like major headline that Cybertruck crashed in Northern California and I think like 2 or 3 people died. And basically the headline is car in Northern California crashes. That was the whole thing. Like even if you read the articles, like the fire wasn't exceptional. Like they put the fire out in normal time when the fire department showed up. People in it died and everything. But that was literally the whole story. And this is national news. I was like, why is this national news? It's because people click on it. And
Because they
like
put the
me
word
talk about
Cybertruck in it.
Right, exactly.
Well, it's funny. There was an article recently. We touched on this briefly in the video episode we did on Patreon, where there was an article about a study about the most like deadly cars in the U.S.
Oh, that Rolling Stone article.
Yeah, it was a Rolling Stone article, but it was based on a study by a group called IC Cars, and they IC Cars,
IC cars.
IC Car people.
Name a car.
But they had done a study and they listed like the most dangerous cars on the road. And we were very confused about this because all the headlines were like Tesla is the most dangerous brand, is the most deadly brand of car. But if you look at the list, the top 5 most dangerous cars are the Hyundai Venue, the Chevrolet Corvette, the Mitsubishi Mirage, the Porsche 911, and the Honda CR-V Hybrid.
That's in the article that has the headline, Tesla is the most dangerous car in America.
Like you really have to massage the data to get the headline Tesla is the most dangerous. What we determined is that they decided that it's the most dangerous by brand. So when you take all the vehicles together and average out their fatalities per million miles driven or whatever
Basically
it is.
per capita.
Right. The Tesla is the number 1. But like it's not even in the top 5 most dangerous actual car models, right? They had to really massage the data to call Tesla out specifically. But no one's going to click on like Hyundais are dangerous.
Right.
They're going to click on the Tesla's dangerous.
Yeah.
So that's what people write.
This does lead into discussion because I do want to talk about the ruble for a second, but there was this thing now that there was a warning that Nissan, as a car manufacturer, estimates that they have about 12 to 14 months left, which is fascinating to me.
They're not going to finish their series?
What's that? They're not. They're not going to finish. And it's more because it's like Nissan, and then it's weird how we went through this phase where there were car manufacturers, and then they all had like their luxury tiers.
Right.
Well.
You had like Toyota, and then you had Lexus.
And then where Toyota's Lexus, and then Nissan was Infinity. Was that Nissan's?
That sounds right.
Bigger one. Anyway, so that's now a warning that's out there. But that ties into now, I think the thing to watch going into December, this being the last day of November, no matter where you are in the world. I think something to watch in December is what's going on with the Russian economy and how that's going to affect, like, we've all noticed a massive escalation in what's going on in Ukraine. Like, there was all these reports that Russia had fired an ICBM, but then that was kind of walked back and it was some kind of new ballistic missile that they had designed. The ICBM thing didn't make a whole lot of sense because ICBM means intercontinental ballistic missile, and they were firing it at a country next door, essentially. Right.
So what you're saying is whoever fired that, either it was a different kind of ballistic, or they didn't read the manual and realize that they were way overdoing it.
Or they're just doing it as like a tacit threat, right? You know, passive, of just like, hey, look what we're doing. We're firing one of these things that you associate with global thermonuclear war, you know? And
no biggie.
Even though it didn't have a nuclear warhead on it. But the images from that thing, I don't know if you saw it, it's insane. It looks like something out of War of the Worlds because it broke into like multiple missiles and they're coming down through the clouds.
I did not see that.
It looks almost like an orbital bombardment, like you'd see in like in a sci-fi movie. It's a very, very scary thing. I don't mean to diminish it at all because there was people, you know, on the ground that were getting hit by this stuff. Anyway, the thing I think to watch in December is what's going on with the Russian economy, because the ruble is now, it's kind of recovered a little bit, but now it's like against the US dollar, it's like 112 rubles to $1 US. And like 10 years ago, it was less than half of that. It was like 50 to $1 US.
Wasn't it also really, it was a really different number at the beginning of the year as well.
Well, it spiked after the invasion began. Because all the sanctions hit and the ruble crashed and it went to like 130-ish to the US dollar. But then there were all these measures taken to prop it up. This is all
right, like nationalizing McDonald's.
This is all analysis, and this is my analysis. I forgot about that. They did do that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because all the
they took it and renamed it and made Russian McDonald's.
Yeah, because everybody pulled out, right? Everybody pulled out of Russia. Anyway, I think it's a thing to watch because in addition to the ruble now, all these measures now are no longer holding back the dam, essentially, or holding back the flood. They're starting to fail. At the same time, the Russians have raised interest rates to 21% is their interest rate. Historic high as well. There's almost like nowhere left to go at this point in time. So maybe they're hoping for a major change around the middle of January or something like that. But I think December is going to be absolutely critical to what's going on in Russia.
All right, so keep an eye on that one. So winter could be difficult for this particular war in Russia.
Did you hear this news about like China found this incredible gold reserve?
No.
The biggest gold reserve ever found, ever. $80 billion worth of gold that was found in China suddenly one day. And they're like, yeah, we found a historic amount of gold.
As one does. No, I didn't hear anything about
Well,
that.
the speculation, conspiracy theorists here, is that what a great way to mask that someone gave you $80 billion in gold. We just found it in the goddamn ground.
I was just walking along.
How are you going to tell them no, you didn't?
It was laying there in the gutter. What was I going to do? Not pick it up?
It's an interesting conspiracy theory. I think that's an interesting conspiracy theory. But yeah, I think that is the story to watch in December. That's my prediction.
All right.
That or the Texas Longhorns playing Texas. One of the two. One of the two. Man, I'm so nervous about that game, man.
Why? So tell me what's going on with Texas. What is important about this weekend?
Let me break it down for you. Essentially, the Aggies suck. No, the Aggies are a really good team. They've played some really well-ranked team that have remained well-ranked, and they've done well. And there's this rivalry, and we're playing them at College Station, which is their home, this horribly named town where they built this university.
Why is it called College Station?
Well, it's because it's where the college is, right?
I guess maybe is it named after like a train station where all the college students would get off?
Weirdly, it has like, and then this is me not casting aspersions. It has a weirdly like pseudo-military vibe to it. I don't know how to put it. There's this organization at Texas A&M called the Corps. They're not part of any official military like organization, but it's like their own kind of homegrown. It's almost like if a university had a militia. Kind of like that. It's a student military organization. I bet there's a word in German for that.
Wow. Oh my God.
No. Listen, they were one of when I was at UT. They were one of UT's biggest rivals. So my take on the Texas A&M Corps of Cadets might be a little biased. Also, I might have had some friends who were involved in stealing their mascot, which also might make me biased.
What?
Well, I talked about that on the Rushdie podcast. People have heard that story 1,000 times. So we'll link the. There's an RTA that explains all that. I'll link that in the link down.
Great.
Okay, all right. Well, who do we have to thank for forming a new student military organization today, Ashley?
I would like to thank our personal militia, apparently, Meg Clark and Sean Roberts. Thank you both for sponsoring this episode of our show at patreon.com/Morning Somewhere. No military service required.
All right, and thank you very much to Neil Coots for today's Morning Somewhere shot. All right, well, that does it for us today. November 29th, 2024, the last day of November. We will be back to talk to you on Monday. We hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.